Welcome to Medical Spa Mastermind. I'm your host, Kathy Christensen, and today we're doing a little bit of a different type of podcast that I am so excited about. One of the things that most of you are very familiar with right now, and if you're not, you should be, is that the medical spa industry is, some would say, under attack. Which is very strong verbiage. Some would say that it's kind of in the crosshairs of certain specialties, certain states where compliance and regulation is being discussed in a way that can potentially undermine licenses and who can operate in medical spas. And I'm really very excited to have an amazing group with me today. Some of the representatives are here, and they have coalesced in their state of Massachusetts to fight this and to make sure that they protect their right to practice and their right to make a living and do what they love. The Aesthetic Medical Providers of Massachusetts, AMP-MA, is a professional organization created to unite, protect, and advance licensed medical professionals practicing in aesthetics across Massachusetts. Membership is designed for physicians, nurse practitioners, PAs, and registered nurses who believe medical aesthetics deserves clear standards, strong advocacy, and a unified voice. As many of you know, I worked with the American Med Spa Association for a very long time, since its inception. That was a large part of my career, and this is a big part of what we did there. AMP-MA recently had a win, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but I want to introduce you to my guests who will be able to share more about their journey, what they're doing, what they're seeing, and how you can do the same. So without further ado, let me introduce Jessica Beeson-Tocco. She's the president of Shepherd Strategies. Jessica focuses on leading policy research initiatives and securing federal, state, and local capital for multinational corporations. She recently retired as the CEO of A10 Associates, the nation's largest women-owned lobbying firm. And she's recently started Shepherd Strategies and is the lobbying partner for AMP-MA. Also, two women who absolutely need no introduction, but I'm going to do it anyway. Audrey Rose. She's the owner and founder of Ageless Wayless and the Audrey Rose Institute of Medical Aesthetics. She's a member of AMP-MP. She established the Institute of Medical Aesthetics in 2016. She's a mentor and trainer with a deep level of knowledge and understanding within the industry. She's a consultant for Merz, Allergan, Evolus, and Prolinium. She's brilliant at what she does in both clinical and business. And we also have Michelle Doran. Michelle Doran, she's the co-founder and clinical director of RN Aesthetics, also from Massachusetts. She has a passion for aesthetics. She's a national trainer for Allergan Aesthetics, leading both the Accelerate and Elevate training programs. She's a brilliant woman who was honored in 2025 as a Women in Aesthetics Leadership Award recipient. For her contributions to education, mentorship, and leadership in the industry. So please help me welcome these incredible women. Say hello, ladies.
Hi, thanks so much.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for having us today.
Absolutely. Thank you. So tell me, what brought you ladies together? Specifically, let's talk about the bill, the most recent bill in Massachusetts. And then I want to go back to how you were able to get, and Michelle and Audrey are two of the many powerhouses in their Massachusetts organization. But tell me all about what brought you together and what you're working on at this point.
Yeah, go ahead, Michelle. You should go first.
So I've been in medical aesthetics now since 2011. And for years, we had kind of on and off maybe a couple different groups of aesthetic providers, but nothing really took off. And then observing everything going on around the country with med spas and with nurse practitioners, scope of practice, and some NPs that had independent practice who suddenly had it rescinded. I thought, okay, we have to be proactive here. We have to get a group of really well-respected providers in Massachusetts together, put our minds all in one pot, and bring on the best government lobby support. And that was obviously Jessica for us. And so I was thinking about, like, who did I want to be on this group with us? And most of the women are, nurse practitioners. We have an RN, we have a PA on our group as founders, and a lot of business owners, etc. And so I just kind of reached out to people and was like, "Hey, you wanna be part of this?" And everyone did,
Uh-huh.
thankfully, and that's kind of how we started.
Wonderful. Audrey, how did you get involved in the group?
This is really funny, but I worked with Jess in numerous occasions in New Hampshire for AMP New Hampshire, as well as I worked with Jess for advocating and changing the policy for microneedling in the state of not microneedling, I'm sorry, PDO threads in the state of Massachusetts. So it was not within our scope of practice for NPs and
Mm.
RNs. And we hired Jess and we went down that road for quite some times and we managed to get the state to say, yes, it's okay. And now providers in the state of Massachusetts, nurses and NPs can perform this service. So Jess and I got close, and then Leah, who's friends with Michelle, said, we're forming this group. You guys have to talk. You need to be a part of this group. So I said, yes, of course. I'm always down for a good movement.
I love that. That's so true. So explain to me the bill that just happened. You guys just had a huge win because you worked hard and you united. But explain to me the bill that just happened and what it was poised to do and how you fought it.
Yeah. So it's actually funny. It's from 2013. So starting around 2013, 2014, the American Medical Association actually put out a cookie cutter bill on their website that would tie the hands of medical aesthetic spas so that doctors in a traditional practice could take the work back. And it's so funny. We've defeated it in so many states. They put it behind a paywall because that's just how cool we are. Because we like to print it out and be like, do you want this in your state from DC? No, you don't. And that tends to work. So what happened was this recycled bill, as normally happens in states, there was a legislator that felt they needed to do something about Medi spas. So they took the recycled bill and they put it out. And that's very common. I think it'd be important for listeners to hear. If you see legislation or regulation against you, it's not always personal. The biggest thing our industry struggles with is our technology and our professionalism and our finances and our treatments are advancing much faster than regulation ever could.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times those in office don't understand what they're doing. So this particular bill was out of date in terms of mass state law, our boards, our scopes of practice, because it was 13 years old. The rep proposed it through the healthcare committee, which is a common thing, and then it was given a hearing. So our job was to make sure that the rep who proposed it and the committee knew this was a bad bill. Mm-hmm. So these ladies, Audrey and Michelle, did a really good job. They were able to get this to go viral, and we circulated a petition of providers and patients. We had 1,500 individuals in Massachusetts sign a petition against the bill, which is very powerful at a state level. The other thing we do, which listeners should remember to do, is we really micro-targeted using grassroots. What does that mean? We took a list of all of our members, all of our founders. We put it on a map. We have almost 100 members, and we matched it up to who our reps were. Mm-hmm. And we found that the woman who proposed it, we had a dozen members in her district, which for state rep, that's a lot because each of them has different employees, different patients. And then we went and we looked at the healthcare committee, and we were able to match and target those members with our people. So once we did that, then we were able to reach out and say, you have X constituents that don't like this.
Mm-hmm.
And that really got us heard. So before the bill even was heard, we were able to talk to the rep. We learned that she was not hot to trot on the bill. It was more of a statement piece, and that she was willing not to fight us on it. And so going into the hearing, you always want to make sure you go into hearings like this using data instead of emotion. So going into the hearing, we were armed with data in terms of where the bill was no longer legal, what was actually wrong with it. That's another thing for listeners to be aware of, which is that all legislators and legislatures right now are flooded with dozens and dozens of bills that they'll never be able to pass.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you want to do is put in resistance, because a lot of time legislators are looking for the path of least resistance. So a really good strategy that we deployed was, listen, you didn't consult the industry. We are not anti-regulation, but we're against this regulation. So if you want to do it in the future, you must work with us. You must work with the industry. And that gives legislators an out to say, okay, next year, let me get to my 1,000 other things.
Yeah.
And that's what happened.
Yeah, that's what. And then tell us how it ended up. So explain the bill itself. What was it trying to do, and how did it end up?
Yeah, so the bill was trying to force registration of medical aesthetic spas, which I think is a concern because we don't force registration in other providers. Only one state in the U.S. forces medical spas to register, which is Indiana. So, if you're a dentist or a doctor, you don't have to register your doctor's office because you're registered with your license. So this was going to single us out. This is going to restrict the ability for NPs and nurse practitioners to be the medical directors, require them to be on site, which I think it's silly to have to be on site at a med spa, but we don't require doctors en masse to be on site at a surgical center or at a birthing center. So you can deliver a baby without a doctor there, but you can't give someone Botox. That makes no sense. And the bill as such was written in 2013 before there was, online medicine and remote medicine. So that's where that came from. And then it also had different tiers of treatments that were very odd, how they put them together and classified them, which is also uncommon because that bill never passed. So it would have directly contradicted with several mass state laws, but also with what our boards and our scopes of practice are, which would have created chaos, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then it got shelved, correct?
Yes. So what happened is we came out very strong. It was really cool. Some providers came out of the woodworks that we didn't even know and spoke against it. And it was sent to study, which means that it was tabled through the rest of the session.
Well, that's a great win. That's a great win. Well done. And that wouldn't have, I'm sure would not have happened without your kind of coalescing and delivering and making viral. And that's a huge strength. I know Michelle and Audrey both have great audiences, and you're so well regarded in the industry. And I love that you're using that podium, that pedestal to really share the important things that are happening in the industry that can really cause a change.
This episode is sponsored by Growth 99, the med spa industry's leading digital marketing platform. Growth 99 has helped over 1,000 aesthetic and elective wellness practices grow through powerful digital marketing. Leading practices trust Growth 99 for services including marketing automation, beautiful websites, paid media, and SEO. Visit www.growth99.com today to learn more, or click the link in our show notes.
I'm curious, as people start to see this happening, this is kind of a movement. Um, how do other people, so kind of backing up a little bit, legislation can be so confusing, it can feel impossible to fight. No one knows where to start. If you're not in a group like AMP MA, how do people fight this? Even if it's on their own, or if they want to start a group like yours, how do they do it, and how important is it? And then my final question is, how does it not become defunct when there is nothing really going on?
Mm.
Uh,
I think it's definitely strength in numbers. I feel like it's hard to go after something alone.
Uh-huh.
So right now, I think we have maybe 120 members of AMP, and we just started and growing, and um, utilizing like the Mass Coalition of Nurse Practitioner group and reaching out to them and their lobby group as well, and same with the MA Mass PA group, because this bill was very sneaky. It kind of like,
Uh-huh.
we didn't know about it. If we weren't paying attention, it would have just happened without any of us testifying. And the big thing is it was going to impact nurse practitioner practice. And like people like the Mass Coalition of NPs, they didn't even know about this.
Really?
So you kind of need lots of people paying attention
Uh-huh.
to these things that will impact practice. And then I do think you need to hire a consultant, a professional like Jessica, to really help with this. Because I tried to get in front of, like, for the microneedling, get in front of the committee on acupuncture, and nobody would ever get back to me, which we can talk about. And I know Audrey with the PDO, Jessica really helped navigate that, but solo, we really couldn't get anywhere.
And I think
Yeah. Go
solo
ahead.
too, the cost is astronomical to get things done.
Yes.
So the more people that you could find, like Michelle did, she found alike people. We grouped together, we pooled, we shared resources, and we were able to like divvy out certain tasks to different people. So this way it's not like a burden. I remember going through the PDO thread procedure and I felt like it was daunting because it was
Uh-huh.
only three of us and we had to not only share the financial but the admin burden. So the more people that you can get, it's going to make it a lot easier for you.
I know, and
That,
it's crazy. Like with the PDO, Audrey and Jessica did that, and it benefited so many providers throughout Massachusetts. So I feel like when we're doing things, we have to hold people accountable. Like, hey, we're doing this for you.
uh-huh.
And not just, and that when you were saying, how do you keep the momentum going when something's not actively happening? We're being proactive and we're advocating for medical aesthetic providers all the time. We're going to be
Hmm.
that guide, the voice that collaborates in terms of regulation, that helps provide education, all of those things. And people have to take responsibility to join and give. Our annual membership is $300, $25 a month. That's less than Starbucks.
Uh-huh.
So, and
That's one lip injection.
right. Yeah.
You do one lip injection and you have your
Totally.
membership right there.
Yes.
So, yeah. So, it's people, even for me being a nurse practitioner, being part of a professional organization that really is focused on what we do and what pays the bills and takes care of our family. Like, this is so important. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's the why behind it.
What I
Yeah, and I think like a really good thing that you guys touched on, just because I've worked with New Hampshire, Mass, Indiana, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Florida, the most important thing you guys said is um, that you have to keep it going, in feast and famine, because this is so important to the industry. And so I think with AMPMA, honestly, we created it ourselves so that we could expand the scope of practice for our group, and what we're trying to achieve. And then this bill came up, and it was really good to coalesce around it. But I think it's making sure that members know that the wolf is at the door year round. And so just because there may not be, I mean, just for example, this year, 21 states had legislation around medical spas, from everything to GLPs, to scopes of practice, to medical ownership. And so states are doing this. So just because this year your state isn't impacting you and having something, it could happen next year. And when you're in the off season, when you don't have something to fight, awareness is so important. Audrey and I, when we first did our little thing in New Hampshire, for example, those reps thought that Medi spas were where people got the dead skin eaten off their feet at the mall. And I think that's not true. And then when we did the pedio threading in Mass, the state of Massachusetts medical board thought pedio threading was acupuncture. It's not. And they really thought that. We had to convince them that it wasn't. And in Indiana, with the GLP-1s, and there is a bill to try to limit compounding, people were being told and reps were believing that people were mixing GLP-1s in the trunk of their car. That is not true. So it's really important that you're spreading awareness.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think also if you're coalescing in the good times, when the bad times come, you actually have your group to communicate to, at least to start with, right? It's not like you're starting from scratch every single time. And unfortunately, this does seem to be a relatively common occurrence that legislation is being brought up that's really going to affect the industry. I love the fact that Michelle and Audrey, you brought on Jessica, because you guys have the industry knowledge, and you have the connections, and you have the power and the energy, and Jessica has like the know-how to make all of that work well within the constraints of the government. You understand, Jessica, how to do it. So what a powerful group that you have. That's incredible. And
Jessica is the missing link.
Yes, the proof is in the pudding of what you've been able to do. Tell me a little bit.
A lot of generous providers contribute initially, because as Audrey said, the financial, you need the finances.
Jessica isn't free.
Right.
Right.
And you can't bear the burden on your own. So when people are like, well, what does my membership get me? Well, it gets you the ability to actually practice.
Yes.
Yes. This is Jessica's doing this full time, helping us, and this is, none of us are taking any money for this. This is so that we can all advocate and practice to the full scope of our license.
Yes, and make sure that continues.
Right.
I know in my past, it was appalling the amount or the lack of knowledge there is about what we actually do on the people making the rules about what we actually do. They do not know what we do. Like you said, we're mixing GLP-1s in the trunk. I'm sure that was, you weren't kidding on that, right? Like they actually thought that. Yeah, that's what I thought. So tell me a little bit, when we first got on this call, Jessica, you mentioned the AMA, the American Medical Association, sent out a recent document about medical aesthetics operating without any regulation in a number of states. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. If you actually go through online, the American Medical Association, for 10 years, they've been putting out these silly kind of articles. And so I think that's where that wolf is at the door, that we want to stand up against those, and we want to educate people that is not true. In all 50 states, we have licensure, we have scopes of practice. They allow us to do what we do.
So one of the things that I know, like specifically like the Texas bill that was trying to really change who can do what in Texas. I think it was either last year or the year before. Um, the issue was not necessarily regulations. Every state actually does have regulations regulating this industry, regulating this profession. But the issue is very much in enforcement. I think, you all are the good actors in the industry, but there are a lot of bad actors in this industry. Is there anything that can be done about enforcing existing laws that can help clean up the industry a little bit?
So I would want to hear from these ladies, but I would just say from my perspective, it would be ensuring that we have medical providers, aesthetic medical providers on the boards and involved in the agencies, because every state has repercussions and every state has strict rules. But if those who are enforcing them don't understand, there's no chance that they can do it properly. So I think it's making sure that our industry is consulted in those states and represented, so that, and I think that would actually improve patient safety
Yes.
if we were regulating. I think we would be regulating a lot harsher than those who don't know anything, because we want to keep the bad actors out.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I
I agree. Sorry, Audrey, go ahead.
Sorry. Well, I think the bad actors are hard to find,
Hmm.
right? I think the good actors, either, for example, the state of Massachusetts, they have an MSO or a licensed clinic, or they're prescriber and they can own their own practice. I think a lot of times what we see with the bad actors are ones that are unlicensed, that are coming from different countries, that are using illegal product in this space. Something blows up there, just like we just see what happened in Mass with patients. Michelle, did you see that with botulism? Because over 10 patients got botulism from an unlicensed provider. So I find like the unlicensed ones are harder to track than licensed provider operating within their scope of practice. And what happens in the industry is something happens to a patient, and then legislation says, okay, we're going to have this blanket that's
Yes.
going to affect everybody else, instead of looking at the perspective of, for example, in my clinic, if one of my employees isn't doing something they're supposed to, I look at myself first,
Hmm.
right? So legislation should look at themselves first. How is the education being? What are the guidelines that we've given them so it's clear and it's cut and they actually understand what they need to do,
Hmm.
right? So I feel like the education portion is the best part to prevent patients from having, bad adverse outcomes, because it is practice in medicine and things can happen.
Hmm.
Not everything is going to be ideal, right?
Hmm.
And I just find that with legislation, it's almost like everything is blanket and we redact independent practice because something happens that an unlicensed person that you couldn't track did, right? That
Yes. Yes.
unlicensed person gave 10 patient botulism, but now licensed people who you gave the permission to have independent practice, you're going to pull that away and say, okay, in the bill, level 3 has to have a physician on board. So we're no longer independent
Right.
because of this one person
That didn't have a license to
that
begin
didn't
with.
have a license. So
And
I
the
feel like the unlicensed people and the bad players are really hard to find, because the good players are out there trying to do their best to abide by the law and be a good citizen. And I
Yes.
think I don't know how you track them. To be honest, I'm not sure.
I
Yeah.
agree with Audrey, and I think that the more you come down on professional providers that are doing things right, be in response to the bad actors, the worse it gets for patients, because now they're even more restricted, and you're going to find people that don't care, that
Uh-huh.
are all about the money, that aren't licensed, that are importing product, and they're just doing it anyway. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's about really looking at what practices like Audrey and mine are doing, and the education piece, and protecting the patients, etc. And really that's what we want to set up, not restricting for people that are doing it the right way.
Yeah, and that's the trick, right? Because the industry itself, I think most would agree, most good actors would agree, the industry itself does have some issues and does have some bad actors, and they actually hurt the majority of the industry. Like you were saying, there's one bad story and the whole industry gets kind of blowback from it. Um, how can we make this industry safer without, this is a tough one. I don't know that there's an answer, but how can we make this industry safer without over regulating? Because most would agree that the issue that's happening is there's attempts at over regulating people who are doing it right, who are doing it, as well as they can. And then, as Audrey said, not so much effort into finding those bad actors, or how do you find them, or before they taint the entire industry. Do you have any thoughts on how we can make this industry safer and more with a focus more on the good than the bad?
I feel like consumer education is important. So patients have to take responsibility where they're going. Let me see the invoice for your products. So ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
Any reputable provider will show you those things. What pharmacy are you getting this from? Like, what is my Botox vial supposed to look like? Are you drawing up
Mm-hmm.
syringes? Can I actually see those lot numbers and expiration? Like, I feel like consumers need to be more educated, but I
Mm-hmm.
think from legislation, they need to give us something that's a little bit more directive. So, not that we're hunting for stuff, like the state of Massachusetts changed their esthetician guidelines, right? And they put out an advisory, but who did they send that to?
Yeah.
Right? Who did they send that to? How are we tracking that? My personal esthetician, I said, did you get an email? We have a shop license. We didn't get an email from our shop license or from the licensed personnel that's in our practice. So, how are they communicating these changes to the providers so that we're all on board with the same thing?
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, education. What should the education of the things you're doing look like? So if I'm going to do Botox, what should my education for Botox look like? What should my education, the states could define those things a little better and be more clear on those things to reduce the risk for people instead of having us all register and put us in different levels that,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to bring us back 20 years because
Mm-hmm.
now I need a physician on site when I'm an NP with independent practice.
Mhm.
Right.
Mouthful.
Exactly.
Sorry, guys. I
No,
just
no,
went
I
off on
think you're right. I mean, there is a lot of consumer confusion out there, and I would almost say too much consumer trust. Like, they need to advocate for themselves. If you were to get laser eye surgery, would you just go to the one in the strip mall, or would you actually go do some research on the provider that's going to put a laser in your eye? There has to be, and to offer those guidelines is critical. What you said, Audrey, like, show me your vials. I would love to see, where the product was from. Make sure it's not, expired or anything like that. It's a shame that it can't be just trustworthy 100%, but there's more that they can do and that we can guide them to do. Even when they're in your chair, to say, hey, just want you to see this. This is, doesn't expire till
Right.
27 or whatever it is. Yeah.
Well, and I think also credentialing yourself to patients.
Yes.
This is who I am. This is what I do, and this is how long I've been doing it. This is my education, etc. Really helps educate the public that if you go somewhere, you probably want to do a little dive into what their license is, and do they, when they're unlicensed or they're an esthetician from another country or nail tech or what have you, performing these medical treatments, a light bulb should go off that maybe this isn't
Yes.
the right thing for this particular patient. Because
Mhm.
people don't know. I've had patients that I've run into in public who will introduce me to their spouse and say, "This is Michelle. She's my Botox esthetician." I'm like, I'm a board certified nurse practitioner. I don't say that, but I'm
Right.
thinking, oh, does she really not know what I do? And that's on me if I haven't really educated patients.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jessica.
No, and I think this also goes back to why every state needs an AMPMA. And I've worked with some state chapters that after they have their big bill, they're not sure what they should do next after they win. And I think that's what these groups can do is educate, what are the 10 things you should do before you get a treatment for the first time? What should you look for with your provider? What to do if you have a bad provider experience? I think number one, that helps empower our customers and each other. But number two, the biggest argument that the American Medical Association and the other haters do is they say that we're unsafe and they say that we're rogue actors. So the more that we can show that we're moral, ethical, legal, and that we follow protocols and we want others to look for protocols, the better we project our industry.
Yeah, I love that. I think there's a certain amount of public awareness, and maybe in the times that aren't as crazy, those membership fees could go to a local campaign or something where it's like, here's what to look for. Um, Ask these questions of your provider or something like that. But you're absolutely right. And I think it's important for people to advocate for themselves. The most of both Michelle and Audrey, I know for a fact, get education on the regular, probably spend tens of thousands of dollars getting educated every single year. And their patients deserve to know that. I would like to see a primary care physician who does that. Not no shade to the primary care physicians, but it's a lot of education and investment to offer safe outcomes. So,
Well, I
um,
was thinking too about cadaver. I mean, the investment in a cadaver course and the fact that even when we teach cadaver, who signs up? It's the nurse practitioners, the nurses, the PAs. We don't see a lot of physicians
physicians.
necessarily
Mhm.
signing up for these. We're really invested in having the full education about anatomy so we can safely treat our patients. And it's an investment.
It
Yeah.
is. I ran a cadaver course for 5 years, and to even import one head was 10 grand.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it's costly.
Yes.
Very much. So tell me, how can just nitty gritty, how can people make sure that especially in states where we don't have an AMP MA or there isn't that type of coalition or um, how does the individual stay up to date on this happening? Um, I know in certain states you can sign up for email lists and they can ping you when a bill starts. What other ways are there to stay informed? Because they do sneak up in the dark of night and they're like due the very next day. And I would love any tips you have.
Well, I think with the AMP, our vision is really that it starts becoming nationwide and each state has their own group. And then we have like a strength in numbers, like the American Nurses Association type thing, but with medical aesthetic providers. And if I were a licensed medical provider in a state, I would be reaching out to colleagues that I really respect and trust and starting a group. I mean, you just register with the state and then you set it up as a nonprofit. There's a little bit of investment up front and then focus on things that you all together can do, policies, protocols, um, education, that kind of stuff, so that you already have your group together and then contracting someone like Jess who is going to keep her eyes out for things for us. That I feel like strength in numbers is really the way to do it. And that's the way to be taken seriously. Otherwise, you look like this,
Yes.
screaming lunatic, like you're by yourself and everyone's like, what is her problem? So you have to, you have to be professional and find like-minded people.
Yeah, I love that. I was thinking, in one of my former careers, I was the editor-in-chief of Skin Inc. magazine, which was a traditional spa skincare magazine. And that was in the early 2000s. And the salon industry would always do takeover of Congress, where they would go and show them everything that they did. And it was great to inform them, like help them understand what they did. So, I mean, even if you have a group like that, you can coalesce and potentially have a day where you're like, no, really, let's learn about us, learn about what we do. But anyway, just like, as you can tell, I'm really excited for you and I'm inspired by you. And I'm so grateful that you've put this group together and it's a great model. So what do you do now that you've got the bill off your plate? What's your next to do?
Oh, it's
Microneedling.
Yeah, we're microneedling and adjusting the advisory from the Board of Nursing in terms of microneedling. And that's really a big part of why we put the group together. And Jessica is helping us with that, getting in front of the Committee on Acupuncture and Board of Medicine to update an out-of-date advisory for nurses.
Right. You guys knew right away. See, that's what I'm talking about. You guys are ready to dominate. I love that. How can people find you? Keep an eye on what AMP is doing. And then if, they wanted to reach out to you or follow you on Instagram, LinkedIn, how can people find you?
We have a website that we set up, mass.org. And you can email there. Our email's info@ampmass.org. We did start an Instagram page as well. You can reach out to Audrey, to myself, to Jessica. She's not on Instagram though, but LinkedIn and Facebook.
I'm too old.
So yeah, that's the best way. If you're a Massachusetts provider, if you were interested in joining us, there's information about how to do that on the website. And we would love to really build up our group.
Absolutely. And kudos to you. I'll be watching from the sidelines. If you ever need me, I'll do what I can to help spread the word. And just cheers to you on your win and for doing what you do. It's not easy, but it's so important. So thank you all for being on the podcast today. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good day. Bye, guys.
Okay. Bye. Thank you.